Testing 1, 2, testing. Testing 1, 2, testing. Welcome everybody to the Area 111 live stream. This is your host RH coming at you again from the beautiful sunshine state of Florida. I'm going to be welcoming people as they come in before we get down to where the rubber meets the road, I should say. Now, I don't know if y'all noticed this or not, but about 2 or 3 months ago, there was a lot of people, well-known people, basically flooding the zone with events that entail covert activity in the previous administrations. We're talking about the 46th administration and the 44th administration. Okay, those were basically 44 and 46 administrations were combined. That's the Biden administrations. There were three, they had 3 terms. Basically, these are the same operatives, basically working even now, trying to mitigate the damage. And as Norm Eisen said, try to stitch up the damages, to try to mitigate or reverse or stop the damages of the basically pushback of all these what we call or we deem to be criminal activities. Of course, everyone is presumed to be innocent until proven guilty in a court of law. Everyone should be afforded their due process of law rights, even if you're traveling abroad or if you're in the United States. Just because an American citizen individuals don't like are traveling abroad for whatever reason, either on vacation or whatever, doesn't mean you have the opportunity to take them out in, for example, drone strikes. Now, so the precedent has been set where a former administrative top level official, we're talking about the presidential office, the office of the president, has issued a basically approval or the go-ahead of taking out American citizens, I believe both in Yemen and one in Afghanistan. Now, of course, those individuals, they never had their day in court. They were actually U.S. citizens. And I have to mention Kurt Weldon, the former congressional representative, Kurt Weldon. Okay, he was put in a lot of powerful positions in the U.S. Congress while he's in the U.S. Congress. Okay, there's a Patrick PB Patrick Ben David. Okay, that channel is PBD. Patrick Ben David. The PBD is basically, I guess you call it acronym of acronym of Patrick Ben David. PBD. Now I want y'all to pay very close attention to that interview with let's see, Lieutenant Colonel Tony Schaefer. Okay, another former individual, I believe he's working directly for the CIA in that interview, and of course, Kurt Weldon. Now, Patrick Ben David basically asked a lot of the right questions from these individuals, and there's a lot of stuff being exposed. Now, I've talked about this somewhat. Covert activities, we believe are covert activities. Let's just say that's our theory. You can call me a conspiracy theorist all you want to, because I do have theories. They are the same as opinions. Do we think the basically the J6 or J7 intelligence community assessment report is anything different? That's an assessment. That's an opinion. Yeah, they might call those opinions highly educated opinions, but they're still opinions. An assessment is made. An assessment is made. It's opinions or an opinion. That's all it is. You know, they dress it up really different. You know what I mean? They dress it up really different. Now, I have a lot of questions still from the far as the activities from the 44th administration and the 46th administration. Let's just say the Biden three terms. Let's just say the Biden 3 terms. They were basically the same people operating behind the scenes that were directly connected with Barack Obama. And a lot of us believe the coup headquarters Obama had that was right there in Washington, D.C. I believe that Valerie Jarrett was actually residing there. But there's a lot of exposure about that. Why would you not leave Washington, D.C.? It looks like there's some things they needed to tie up before Barack Obama basically retired or whatever, or went off into the sunset, going to the French Polynesia, Marlon Brando resorts and that kind of thing, you know, leaving Michelle Obama back in the States and I guess his 2 children, so he could so-called quote unquote write his books, right? Or book. Anyways, I do believe, and a lot of people, other people believe that he was afraid he might be arrested the moment he got out of office on January 20th of basically 2017. And that's why he hightailed it to the French Polynesia. And, you know, that's a theory. That's another opinion, right? So, that's just another conspiracy theory. Did he not go there for vacation? It was like 2 months or something like that. And we heard what that resort, the activities of that resort of what they entail. So I won't get into the personal stuff of that, but you know, whatever trips their trigger, whatever, you know. But anyways, I want to revisit a few things that I believe there's some connections as far as covert activity. Now, the place card holder video I shared was a video that the mainstream media put out during the global pandemic period, because they had the number of deaths below, okay, on the screen of the video of Barack Obama in Maryland. I believe he was at Bethesda, or the John Hopkins, whatever call it, John Hopkins in Bethesda. Well, that was December 2nd of 2014. Now, why is that so important? Because Barack Obama said we basically need, or they need, a global pandemic infrastructure. Okay? And that's the reason, the motive for me sharing a photograph of the Communist Chinese Party's Center Disease Control Director, George Fu Gao. Now, there's some jokes made about George Kung Fu Gao, and the press called that, the Kung Fu aspect of that joke, as racist. So I do believe there was some little breadcrumbs that were given to us during a COVID press briefing or whatever, you know. But anyways, so what's very important about this to understand that on December 2nd of 2014, the coup to overthrow the president of Ukraine had already occurred. The coup to overthrow the president of Ukraine had already occurred. Now, in 2015, I think it was February 15th of 2015, somewhere around that time frame, could have been January, Barack Obama had an interview on CNN with Fareed Zardari, who was the author of the Post-American World, that book that Barack Obama was sporting around with him, holding in his left hand with that ring of his, you know what I mean? Basically, so everybody could see his favorite reading of the day or whatever, or the week or the year or whatever. So anyways, Barack Obama basically bragged about overthrowing Yanukovych in Ukraine, and Yanukovych basically having to flee to Russia because guess what? They would have Gaddafi'd him, in my opinion. So if he wasn't worried about his life, you know, being taken from him, then why didn't he just stay there, right? So obviously he had some fears. Okay, it looks pretty bad. They want me out of here, and they want me out of here now. So now remember, during it was like a congressional or a Senate session that I forgot the lady they asked. They talked about Ukraine having U.S. biolabs, right? And I forgot the lady's name. If I remember it later, I'll talk about it. But anyways, I believe it was Victoria Nuland. Marco Rubio questioned Victoria Nuland about whether or not there was U.S. or I'm paraphrasing here. I can't remember exact question. I can't quote the exact question that Rubio posed to Victoria Nuland, but basically entailed, do we have U.S. Or U.S. military biolabs in Ukraine? And basically her answer was, yeah, pretty much yes, we do, but, you know, it was also before denied publicly. Yes, we do, but we're trying to basically make sure that Russia doesn't take control of those facilities and basically take over those pathogens, right? So there's So 2014 time period is it's a key date in my opinion. So remember 2015, Barack Obama goes out there on CNN, Fareed Zardari show to be interviewed and questioned about that. And he volunteers that we brokered a deal to remove Yanukovych from power. Then he had to flee for his life. So Barack Obama spilt the beans. You think about that. Think about if there was actually covert operatives in the field and he goes out there and spills the beans that, yeah, we removed them from power and basically, and then you have before that in on December 2nd of 2014, you have Barack Obama in Maryland at Bethesda, I'm pretty sure, soliciting for a global pandemic infrastructure, not only in the United States, but global. So now I also kind of like to put this together. Now they this may or may not be associated with each other. But when Barack Obama was out there soliciting for a global pandemic infrastructure, he had already put together, or he was going to put together, the joint U.S. and or China, joint U.S. and China Paris Climate Accord partnership. Now, the Paris Climate Accord partnership was basically going to soak American taxpayers out of $1 trillion, $100 billion a year for 10 years. Okay, so then moving along forward, you have Event 201, global pandemic exercise based on the new coronavirus, right? So you have to go back and watch that video of Obama back on December 2nd. Now, I'm going to share my link to True Social. So I put up pretty much all the the source references. So if you are interested in looking at the source references to include the videos, I put the link in the chat. Okay? I put the link in the chat. So grab that link, go over to True Social, basically follow this channel on True Social, because I'm not basically putting myself in this because I'm retired. I'm just like anybody else. I'm retired from active duty. I've been retired from active duty going on 23 years now. Actually, going on 24. Okay? So I'm just a regular, U.S. citizen. So I'm putting this information out. I'm not basically I'm not a spokesperson for the United States Air Force, Department of Defense, or any government official or whatever. President Trump doesn't know me from Adam. All these people, they have no idea who I am. Maybe it's good that way. I mean, I have nothing to be ashamed of. So anyways, I got not a smidgen of corruption on my record. So anyways, with that said, I do believe the joint Obama-Z partnership to get us into the Paris Climate Accord was going to help put together the global pandemic infrastructure. Okay? So now what's very, very important, I can't stress this enough. What's very important is that this avatar photograph of the CDC director, the CCP, Communist Chinese Party CDC director, George Fugao, he's sitting right next to Avril. He's on to Avril Haines' right. Now, there was not a single person in Event 201 held on October 18th of 2019, not a single individual that belonged to the Trump administration that took part in that exercise. And of course, this was the global pandemic exercise based on a new coronavirus. So if they had already been funded, so every year of the Paris Climate Accord joint partnership deal between Barack Obama and President Xi of China, every year they were going to take $100 billion from the American taxpayer under the impression that it was going to go towards fighting climate change. Okay, we know how they did that as well before. There was, I won't go into all the details of the shovel-ready jobs and, all the money for the infrastructure. Where did it all go? Okay. Now, when I talk about, and Patrick doesn't know who I am, Patrick Ben David, he doesn't know who I am either. So give the guy a break if you don't like RH, whatever. I mean, he doesn't know me from Adam as well. So anyways, I want y'all also to pay attention. Now, this isn't really connected directly, but it's, in a way, it is. When you're possibly considering criminal corruption at the highest levels. Now, after 9/11, there's evidence that they moved bin Laden to Iran for far as being in a safe haven where he was protected. Okay, so I won't go into any further into that information, but that was all part of the part of that basically that interview or that live stream or that podcast for that. It's about 2 or 3 years months ago. Let me go grab the link. I'll be right back. Bear with me. Okay, so we're still live. Okay, I have the link for the about them moving Bin Laden and a lot of other very interesting things that a lot of people will probably be very angry if they learned about it. Okay, that's the link there in the chat. Again, my True Social link is in the chat, and see if I still have that. I'll share that again. Oh man. Okay, let me go to the clipboard. Yeah, it's kind of important to me that people go to True Social because it's basically, I've not, far as I know, been throttled back on anything. Now, there's certain things that, they got parameters to protect, as far as hackers and all that stuff. So there's some things I got caught up in doing that I was trying to share multiple things on like one post on my profile, and it wasn't intentionally trying to duplicate things, but trying to add information to certain like photographs like this to give people a proper perspective of what the message is. You know what I mean? So anyways, make sure we're still. Now, I started this live stream really late. Now, I do have friends out west in California, so they're in a different time zone. It's earlier in the evening than it's already in the morning time here in Florida. So we're looking at 1:12 a.m. So if you do basically catch this live stream, please share it. Please focus on sharing the Rumble live stream now. Again, I'm at area 111 without the space over on Rumble. Now there's other area 111 channels, but those aren't mine. Now you're going to have to click on the channel search or the search bar and type in area 111 without the space, okay? And you're going to have to look for a blue avatar photograph with a capital letter A in the middle. That is my channel on Rumble. It's important that y'all check out Rumble and follow me over on Rumble. Doesn't cost you a dime. It's a great platform. But anyways, for some reason, when you click on area 111, it diverts you somewhere else. Now, so I don't think that's a way far as a possible way of censorship. But remember, these companies and stuff, they may be ran by people that support our free speech, but there might be some people working in those companies like True social media companies, whatever, or I don't think I've seen any of that happening at True Social, but I believe it appears that some of that goes on over at Rumble. But remember, my channel's Area 111 without the space. It's a blue avatar picture with a white capital letter A in the middle of the blue avatar background. So that you get to the right channel. Now, again, True Social is where I back up these live streams with my source references. I'm getting a lot better at it because it's a little bit complicated if you're not involved in, or if you're not good with technology or the internet or browsing or whatever, or website, links and all that kind of thing. It's kind of a little bit confusing, but it still works. And I'm still getting around True Social, and I haven't really deep dived into Rumble yet, far as maybe producing a better pre-show type videos that you see on a lot of these major influencer channels. They have a studio set up. They have all the electronics devices, whatever they need. The links, and I could have the same thing too. You think about it. This is like watch or listening to a radio. I love listening to radio shows back in the day, especially shows like Coast to Coast AM. I'm a big fan about Coast to Coast AM radio. It's a radio show, right? So I listened to that, and it came on the early hours. It came on in the early hours, but yeah, I really enjoyed listening to a lot of those shows. Some of it's kind of ridiculous, but hey, sometimes science fiction proves to be true stories, right? So nonfiction. But anyways, thank you for whoever else is here on YouTube. I see there's myself and someone else. Okay, so it's very vital, I think, because the response of Tulsi Gabbard's. She's the director of national intelligence. What she's put out, far as when I talk about covert activities in the former administration, or administrations plural. Okay, so I want to keep on reminding people the presidential finding. The presidential finding is what authorizes the president of the United States, whoever it is at that time, to use the intel community covertly to go after individuals, right? And they weaponized it. Let me just say this again. Presidential findings, like I read last night, and I'll read it again. Okay, I'll read it again. When is the show? Testing 1 2. Testing 1 2. Okay, I'm live over on YouTube. We should be live on Rumble as well. Stand by. What in the world is going on here? Testing 1 2. Rumble. Testing 1 2. Rumble. Okay. Now I don't know if Rumble was live. So if you go into the link on Rumble, my link area 111 without the space, you see the capital letter A, then white letter with a blue background. That's my channel. There's another channel out there, and when you go in and you click on the search bar to look at the videos or the live streams I've had previously, yeah, this is my channel. So anyways, I normally go live both on Rumble and YouTube simultaneously, but I've been deplatformed multiple times on YouTube. So basically, I think YouTube is where I first started out live streaming over 2 years ago, and I was having thousands of viewers for a single live stream, and back in the day when they deplatformed me off of YouTube, everything else fell apart, right? So I scrambled to get hundreds followers on Area 111 on Rumble, so I could start doing live streams there, and that's what I did after I was deplatformed off of YouTube multiple times, by the way. So I finally got my channel back. I basically had to go calm silent for like over 6 months, and just basically have the live streams on Rumble all that time. And I had to start deleting live streams off of YouTube. So anyways, let's do this now. So getting back to the main theme of tonight's or this morning's live stream, depending on where you're at. There's going to be a lot of exposure coming out concerning the 44th administration and the 46th administration. Now, as far as their covert activities are concerned. Now, I'm going to go back to, like I said I was going to do, and we're going to go to the Special Activities Center, which you can basically do a Google search. The Special Activities Center is a division with the Central Intelligence Agency. Okay? Now, this Wikipedia information concerning the Special Activities Center, which again is a division within a Central Intelligence Agency, this is their mission statement. This is their history. Okay? So this isn't RH just going out there just throwing stuff up against the wall hoping it sticks. Now, I'm going to read this real quick, the first paragraph. I'm going to move on down into the body of this text, down to presidential findings. Now, presidential findings occur due to the intelligence community assessment reports. Basically, the presidential findings also are put together according to FISA court applications, assessments, opinions, professional opinions, whatever, activity, psychological warfare operations, propaganda. They use all that stuff, which they can deny, right, covertly. Now, for O'Biden, I call O'Biden because O'Biden administration lasted 3 terms, okay? 3 terms, 3 full terms. Whether Obama was in the basement with his earpiece and basically talking the ear through somebody else's earpiece, he said that's what he wanted to do. He wouldn't mind doing that at all, as long as he didn't have to be part of those pesky ceremonies like on the 4th of July, Memorial Day and all that kind of thing, right? He'd rather not partake in those ceremonies, right? So anyways, he said that himself. Don't blame RH or this channel for what he said himself. So that's what he'd like to do. And we do believe that Kamala wore an earpiece. And I do believe I got a photograph of Biden actually repositioning his earpiece. Okay. I've shared that multiple times. Okay, so the first paragraph of the Special Activities Center, remember, this is their mission statement. This is their own history. They have basically source references that are numbered or labeled in there, the hyperlinks to them, so you can go check them out because it's legit. The Special Activities Center is the center of the United States Central Intelligence Agency responsible for covert operations. The unit was named Special Activities Division prior to a 2015 reorganization. So it was called Special Activities Division, but the Obama administration, they reorganized basically the Central Intelligence Agency. They basically reorganized it. Okay? They changed the name. And this is what a lot of times covertly, when they want to basically, that was the old one, right? So we don't need to keep this information anymore. So what they do, poof, it's gone, right? Because it's no longer the Special Activities Division. There's new leadership there now. It's named something different, and they may even relocate substations of the Central Intelligence Agency. Okay? They have covert teams. Basically, let's go ahead and finish this first paragraph. Within Special Activities Center, there are at least two separate groups: Special Activities Center, Special Operations Group for tactical paramilitary operations, and SAC Political Action Group for covert political action. Covert political action. Special Operations Group is responsible for operations that conclude clandestine or covert operations with which the United States government does not want to be overtly associated. As such, unit members called paramilitary operations officers and specialized skill officers do not typically wear uniforms. So what about the raid on Mar-a-Lago? Were they wearing uniforms? Were they identifying themselves as the FBI, DHS, or Department of Homeland Security? No, they were ordered not to wear uniforms with identification on those uniforms. They were also ordered to basically wear a plain shirt, like a collared shirt or a polo shirt or a golf shirt. And they are also ordered to conceal their weapons. Conceal their weapons. Okay? So if those individuals covertly, if they are compromised during a mission, the U.S. government may deny all knowledge. That's in their own mission statement. So in order to go in there and actually, for the DOJ, whoever ordered that raid at Mar-a-Lago, they had to base that off of a presidential finding. Okay? That presidential finding, let's see, when was the raid? That was the raid during the Biden third term. Okay, so let me skip what I was going to say there because it was going to be a mistake. If they are compromised during a mission, the United States may deny all knowledge. The group generally recruits personnel from special mission units, and they basically are interviewed. And I guarantee you, during these three terms of the Biden administration, they were basically, you loyal to Trump, or you got you part of MAGA or any of that stuff. So they were basically sifting these people out, make sure there was no alliances that their political alliances were allied with them. Okay. The group generally recruits personnel from special mission units within the U.S. Special Operations Group community. Let's move on down further. Political Action Group is responsible for covert activities related to political influence, psychological operations, economic warfare, and cyber warfare. Covert political and influence operations are used to support U.S. domestic and foreign policy. I'm going to add in domestic policy because that is proven to be true, whether it goes towards the Hunter Biden laptop and the 51 Intel people signing off on that letter. They were influencing or trying to influence elections. Covert political and influence operations are used to support U.S. and domestic and foreign policy, as overt support for one element of an insurgency can be counterproductive due to the unfavorable impression of the United States in some countries. Now, let's talk about this insurgency. Insurgency is a major key word as far as the operations that they had from January 20th of 2021 to January 20th of 2025 during the Biden third term. They put together, not only they facilitated and directed an invasion into our country which cost the lives of hundreds of thousands of American citizens. If you just consider fentanyl alone, it has cost the lives of hundreds of thousands of American citizens. So what coincided with the invasion, which is against the Constitution? It is treason. It is a seditious conspiracy to to allow an invasion into our country. What can we even add on to that? Along with the invasion into our country for those 4 years under the Biden third term, they also had, it coincided with a military and terrorist insurgency into our country. That is what these people have done. And there's no statute of limitation, as far as my understanding. There is for their felony, like, right, but we're talking about high crimes here. We're talking about treason. They knew that allowing that invasion to occur and basically turning your backs to it, knowing that all these people were being murdered in our country, and they still allowed it to happen. They still facilitated and directed into our country, which included a foreign military and terrorist insurgency into our country. The intel reports proves what I'm saying is correct. Okay. So they're trying to basically dismiss this, saying, oh, we don't have the authority to run those operations on U.S. soil. Yes, they do. They got the authorization to do that from Barack Obama and Joe Biden. Now, the first two administrations under Biden, now they had to run these operations covertly, like a covert operation to basically kill U.S. citizens abroad. Those were covert operations. Okay. Okay, so how did the intel community get the authorization for these covert activities, which included the other, you got the eyes, right? There's 4 more of them. Got the big eye, and you got the 4 other ones, right? Okay, let's go on further. The political action group within SAC conducts the deniable psychological operations, also known as black propaganda, as well as covert influence to induce political change, hope and change, right? In other countries, as well as the United States, as part of the United States domestic and foreign policy. Covert intervention in domestic and foreign elections is the most significant form of the Special Activity Center political action. This involves financial support for favored candidates, media guidance, technical support for public relations, get out the vote, or political organizing efforts. Who was a community organizer in Chicago? This is the same terminology, word association, that it connects to the Biden administration 3 terms. This directly connects them. Legal expertise, lawfare, right? Which includes lawfare. I'm adding that, right? Advertising campaigns, assistance with poll watching, down to the local levels, and other means of direct action. Policy decisions are influenced by agents such as subverted officials of the country, to include in the United States. Now, you hear a lot about that list. Could those be subverted officials they were using of the country to make decisions, and inside our country to make decisions in their official capacity that is the furtherance of the intelligence community. In addition, mechanisms for forming and developing opinions involve the covert use of propaganda. Propaganda, now let's go back to the psychological warfare operations. Remember, they used a warfare DARPA PSYOPs operation that they created to basically counter ISIS. They used that. They're still using that on American people. All you have to do is watch the Mockingbird media. Once they start flooding the zone with their BS, which we learned about in Event 201, Global Pandemic Exercise based on the new coronavirus, go check it out. Event 201, the highlights reel is only like 13 minutes long. It exposes the whole operation. Propaganda includes leaflets, newspapers, magazines, books. You know, all these people getting book deals, right? Mike Pence getting a book deal advance, like over $1 million, right? That must be some mighty fancy writing. And then he joined to basically the Kamala campaign. He started working for Kamala. So books, radio, and television. So book deals, right? So, okay, where do you think these people are getting all this money for these books? Right here. Paid for propaganda. So let's start this reading again. Propaganda includes leaflets, newspapers, magazines, books, radio, and television, all of which are geared to convey the U.S. message appropriate to the region. These techniques have expanded to cover the internet as well. They may employ officers to work as journalists, recruit agents of influence, that's like celebrities, operate media platforms, actually running media platforms like social media, deplatforming us, censoring us, you name it. Plant certain stories or information in places it hope will come to public attention, or seek to deny and or discredit information that is public knowledge. One of those operations was a Hunter Biden laptop. 51 of these intelligence officials came forward saying that the Hunter Biden laptop has all the earmarks of a Russian disinformation campaign, right? Something to that effect. And all such propaganda efforts, black operations, to note those in which the audience is to be kept ignorant of the source. White efforts are those in which the originator openly acknowledges themselves, and gray operations are those in which the source is partially but not fully acknowledged. Like the Steele dossier, right? The dossier, the salacious dossier. Remember Stephanie Clifford? They refused to say her real name. That was her last. She got married. I believe her last name is different now, right? So when you go out there and look up Stephanie Clifford, you're probably going to have a hard time finding her. Most people are because of the PSYOPs operation on American people and the propaganda that coincided with the PSYOPs operation, people only know Stephanie Clifford as of Stormy Daniels, right? That was part of one of the operations, in my opinion, to take down President Trump. Remember, psychological warfare operations, which includes propaganda. They don't care who they take down. And who authorized them? Who authorized them? That was a presidential authorization. We're going to read their own mission statement. Okay? The CIA, this is talk under covert action. The CIA is authorized to collect intelligence, conduct counterintelligence, and conduct covert action by the National Security Act of 1947. President Ronald Reagan issued Executive Order 12333 titled United States Intelligence Activities in 1984. This order defined covert actions as special activities both political and military. Listen to this real quick. Listen to this very closely. Special activities, the Special Activities Center, which used to be called the Special Activities Division, and was reorganized by the Biden administration. They conduct covert action as special activities, both political and military. Okay. Remember General Milley saying that he was not going to basically, if Donald Trump ordered the use of military on the streets of our country, to report to General Milley first, and he would basically he ordered the Joint Chiefs and these commanders, top-level commanders, if President Trump ordered the military on the streets of America to report to him first before they carried out that order, and he would decide whether that was constitutional or not. He also basically called his ally in Beijing, China, and basically told Beijing that if Trump was basically we basically got Trump in a box, and he's not going to basically be conducting any type of military activity against China. Okay? So they shut all that down. What else did they shut down? The very first, now I remember it's either of the 117th Congress or the 118th Congress. That would be on January 6th of 2001. January 6th of 2001. Trump authorized the use of 10,000 National Guard troops to help secure the Capitol on J6. Why did it take so long? They didn't get there to help. They were already authorized 4 days before. Right? So part of that bottleneck was because they had to report to the General Milley to see whether he would deem that order as constitutional or not. So that order was not approved until after the breach of the Capitol building. They had two plans, in my opinion. This is just my opinion, based on my own assessment. They wanted to basically have the breach of the Capitol building, blame President Trump for leading an insurrection so he can never hold office again. So this had to be both a political and military operation that occurred on January 6th. This is where it starts to make it treasonous. This is where you start to see, well, when this goes to litigation, this has to go to military tribunals. Now, we got evidence from Milley's own mouth that he was going to basically ensure that Donald Trump did not use the military on the streets of America. And they had a coup already put together that they were going to forcibly remove President Trump from office, even though this is what they obstructed. The insurrection is when they blocked the objectors from reading the evidence of the fraud into record. The very first objector, Dr. Paul Gosar of the state of Arizona, basically was listing all the fraud that he had uncovered up till after the elections till January 6th. He was reading off all the evidence that he had. They obstructed him right in the middle of that reading when they adjourned to the joint session. You heard these huge loud bangs. They basically opened up the door.
to the Capitol building. They allowed their breach to occur from the inside. They opened up the doors from the inside. Remember, they blocked President Trump's authorization to have 10,000 National Guard troops to report to Stevenson, or the National Guard commander, trained with his troops trained in riot control, to report to the Capitol Police Chief, Stevenson. They blocked it. They wanted the breach to occur. They set it up. That was plan A. They blocked the troops from securing the Capitol so that the objectors could read the evidence without interruption into record, which would compel Mike Pence to basically, and I think Pelosi, to kick it back down to the states and have an actual official investigation. So they blocked everything. They blocked it all to prevent that from happening. They allowed the breach to occur. That was plan A. Plan A, deny any troops on the ground to help secure the Capitol, allow the breach to occur, have operatives on the inside of the Capitol, opening up the double steel doors from the inside and motioning people, protesters, and even also rioters to come into the Capitol building. Okay? That's what they did. We already got the evidence on it. So what was plan B? Plan B was to call in a bomb scare. You know, like that guy, he pulled the fire alarm. That interrupted, right? That was insurrection, right? He stopped the session, whatever, from happening. Okay. Who authorized all this lawfare to start off against President Trump before he ever got in office? Who authorized the coup, which includes the military, by the way? I hate to say it. Who authorized the coup? That was Barack Obama. The CIA was activated. Those covert activities were activated due to a presidential finding. The CIA is also designated as the sole authority under the 1991 Intelligence Authorization Act and mirrored in Title 50 of the United States Code, Section 413E. The CIA must have a presidential finding in order to conduct these activities under the Hughes-Ryan Amendment to the 1991 Intelligence Authorization Act. Now, Now you'll hear this pushback from Obama's office, right? That, even they're trying to get the backing of Marco Rubio, of all people. Why are they using his name? These findings are monitored by the oversight committees in both the U.S. Senate, called the Senate Select Committee on Intelligence, and the U.S. House of Representatives, called the House Permanent Select Committee on Intelligence. Okay? They're supposed to be monitored. But I have to bring to attention the listeners that hold on. So only have one viewer still on Rumble. Yeah, I expected this. I expect this channel to be hit hard because of this information, because there's a lot of people still in this government, still in the agencies that are still working for the same people. You know, they came in, they're holdovers or whatever you want to call them. They're still doing the same activities, putting out the BS in the media, the Mockingbird media, giving them false narratives to read to this day.
Okay. So we got just 2 people listening in over on YouTube. There's 3 total, but one of those 3 is myself, myself, and I. Unfortunately, this is probably some of the best information that people, especially people new to this channel that have never listened to this channel, some of the best information you'll ever hear or see. So the coup to overthrow President Trump, to authorize the use of psychological warfare operations and propaganda, was due to a fraudulent presidential finding. The presidential finding used fraudulent information, basically conduct a coup on President Trump before he ever entered office on January 20th of 2017. This is what's been going on. The lawfare, legal support, the lawfare operations, and in my opinion, in many cases, being funded covertly through the black budget. Because remember, let's go back. How is RH going to prove that? Okay, you have to fund the political action group, right? They have teams, right? They go out there and they provide intel briefings, right? They draw up the intel briefings. Remember in 2016, the intel community was giving Hillary Clinton a different intel briefing than they were giving President Trump. That's the reason why they ensured they got rid of Michael Flynn. And what's his name? I can't remember all the people's name, but I do know that Mike Pence was in the office when they read the document, right? What document do you think they said were basically they said that Flynn talked about sanctions? What document do you think that they read off to basically get General Flynn fired or arrested? Even worse, remember their ultimate objective with President Trump, it was to permanently silence him. Anybody around him, because they could not have that operation exposed. So they put together fraudulent intelligence community assessment reports. They put together fraudulent FISA court applications. And who's complicit in that? Who helps oversees the FISA court judges, or who oversees the FISA court applications? Not only does the FISA court judge or judges do that, it's overseen by who? Chief Justice John Roberts. How many people even know that? So these covert operations go up. They basically, some of the information they used the FISA court warrants applications for. That information, it was so ridiculous, anybody could see through what they were doing. They didn't care because they were all on the same sheet of music. They all supported it. They all believed the Mockingbird media. They fell for the psychological warfare operations. They fell for the propaganda operations. Remember in 2014, not only was Barack Obama out there facilitating or calling for or trying to put together a global pandemic infrastructure, he legalized the use of propaganda by basically altering the Smith-Mundt Act, from what I understand. They authorized the use of propaganda. That's what destroyed our free press. Because then you started having journalists, just like it says in their own mission statement, media stations and journalists reading their scripts, which they know is propaganda. I can't, man, you catch these people when they go off script, right? They're flood the zone scripts. Like they did one time, they said Stephanie Daniels. And you see, I wish I'd have basically recorded that when I watched that video of the journalist, her eyes like
I don't know, somebody gave her a sign or something or talked in her earpiece, but her eyes open up like a deer caught in headlights, right? So, anyways, because she was not supposed to use special operative Desert Storm, Stormy Daniels, they was not supposed to go off that script because that's part of the psychological propaganda operation. That's how they were helped legally too as well. E.G. and Carroll, all these people. So the Mockingbird media channels, they are basically being paid to read those scripts. That is part of the psychological warfare operation and propaganda. They are paid to read those scripts. When President Obama basically threw a National Defense Authorization Act approving to alter the Smith-Mundt Act to use propaganda, he basically destroyed our free press. Because, you know, pretty much so many of these people are subverted, it's ridiculous. So many of these people are subverted. It's ridiculous. What I mean by subverted, they're paid through the black budget of the intelligence community to basically read the scripts that they want them to read. And they can't get off the plantation, as people would say. If they get off the plantation, then their funding is cut. Their funding's cut. Now remember, the intelligence community, the U.S. intelligence community, their black budget or their budget is more than the GDPs of the majority of countries around the world. They could actually go out and buy countries if they wanted to, covertly. Make individuals that they like, whatever, or that are part of their operation, allow them to own it or run it, you know, or be the leaders and their presidents or whatever. So they never got around to basically auditing the black budget of the intelligence community. Let's just say the U.S. intelligence community. Now, RH is not talking about the law-abiding, patriotic people out there that are honest, right? He's not talking about those individuals that are out there every day that are law-abiding and honest, working in the three-letter agencies, wherever they're at, risking their lives to help keep us all safe and working for our national security, national defense, and our own security. We're not talking about, I'm not talking about those people. Of course, it's common sense to know that there are bad apples everywhere you look. Now, I'm going to also talk about this presidential finding. The presidential finding I just read in their own mission statement authorized the illegal covert activities, illegal surveillance, the coup operations, everything. They're still operating. How can they do that? Because these operations are highly compartmentalized. Even getting into the political action group, they have teams. And teams could be working remotely. Not in Virginia, right? Not in the George Herbert Walker Bush building, right? They could be working anywhere in the United States. They could actually be working offshore. Like in, for example, RAF Menwith Hill. Menwith is a compound word. Hill. Go down and read through all of that information. RAF Menwith Hill, and go down and read. Make sure you don't miss Echelon. Click on that Echelon link. So they outsource operations like the Christopher Steele dossier. They outsource that to other intel communities abroad. Christopher Steele, I guess, was MI5 or MI6, right? You know, they say once you enter into that agency, you can never leave. You know, you see movies and stuff like that. I don't know how much of that is true. But remember, they have non-disclosure agreements that they have to abide by. And if they get off the plantation, I don't think it's going to be very good for them. So stand by here. Okay, so it appears to be some connections with, now I'm just going to say this is just my opinion, okay? Remember, this is a law and order channel. I support self-defense and national defense 100%. A lot of these are just my opinions, but they're being backed up by facts as we go along. Every single day, we're picking up bits and pieces of more information that puts together this broader criminal conspiracy to overthrow our government before they ever got in office back in 2016. And it continues in many aspects to this day. And people out there just reading this ridiculous information, feeding the public with this as part of the psychological warfare operation, gaslighting Americans to do stuff they normally wouldn't do. And then you have to look at the aspect of how many of these people are basically inflicted with what we call psychotropics. Now, the actual movie Conspiracy Theory with Mel Gibson, I believe his name was Mel Gibson and Julia Roberts. Go check it out. There's a possible theory in that movie, Conspiracy Theory, that leads many of us to believe what we believed all along, that John Hinckley Jr. was a victim of MK Ultra, and they were giving him psychotropic drugs. So they already had. It seemed like it was kind of convenient that they found his diary right away, and he did all that because of he's trying to impress Jodie Foster because he watched the movie The Taxi, right? So that's the official explanation of why, or motive, why he tried to murder President Reagan. And of course, right after those first shots were fired, Hinckley was able to get out of line of sight from whenever President Reagan walked out of the Hilton hotel building in Washington. Basically, when he walked out, he had to basically walk into a kill box about 80 feet away where the presidential limousine was parked. Hinckley was behind a wall. Neither could Reagan or Reagan's immediate detail, U.S. Secret Service, is supposed to be walking next to him, right? They could see Hinckley. Once Hinckley had line of sight, once Reagan got to the angle where Hinckley could see him, and he was shielded by a wall to his right, he fired off those shots. Okay. And they immediately put They basically shoved President Reagan into the back of the limousine, and they immediately put a human wall of protection all around Hinckley, and they whisked him out of that location, put him in a car, right? They held his head down even while they had that wall of human protection all around him, right? Make sure whatever. He was basically whisked away and immediately declared innocent on the grounds of insanity. Now, most people that were there that day, they basically swear that they heard more than 6 shots. It sounded like a lot more shots or more than 6 shots. Judy Woodruff is one of those people. Okay. So go. Now, I do believe Crooks was on psychotropics. I do believe John Hinckley Jr. was too as well. And possibly even Ron Ruth. Now, there's other attempts made that we probably will never know about. So I do believe, and if you cremate somebody, right? If you cremate somebody, you don't have that evidence. You can't they can't do a autopsy to see whether either Crooks or John Hinckley Jr. at the time was on psychotropics. Of course, they didn't cremate John Hinckley Jr. Now, I don't know. His memory's probably gone. His memory's totally, it's probably gone. You only maybe have bits and pieces of the past, right? There's a good movie called Skull and Bones. Paul Walker, I think it was the first one, played in that movie. Go check it out. What they did whenever they caught one guy that went off the plantation, basically, what they did to him. They basically gave him a shot, right? And he was like in a wheelchair, with his head basically his chin pretty much touching his chest, and great acting, and just saliva was coming out of his mouth, right? So basically, no good for anything. you know, there's your witness right there. Oh, I can't recall. I can't recall. I can't recall. I can't talk. I can't talk. I can't talk. I can't recall. I can't recall. I can't recall. Where have we recalled the term I can't recall? Oh, I like that movie, the Total Recall, right? you know, there's sometimes truth is stranger than fiction, right? I can't recall. I can't recall. I can't recall. When Hillary Clinton was being interviewed, right? That I think it was the 4th of July weekend. How many times did she say she couldn't recall? Was it like 37 times? Can't recall. I just can't recall. Hillary Clinton, ma'am, what is your middle name? I can't recall. I can't recall. You got the sign. I can't recall in the background, right? They put the sign up. I can't recall. They put the sign up. Laugh, laugh. I can't recall. I can't recall. Oh, the new one. I plead the fifth. I plead the fifth. These are public officials. I can't. I plead the fifth. Oh, I can't recall. I can't. I plead the fifth. I can't recall. I can't recall. I can't recall. I can't recall. I plead the fifth. We've seen that. That's like Norm Eisen tactics. You know, Norm Eisen was Obama's White House counsel, right? Remember? He said he's going to eject President Trump from office just recently, a few months back. He's pretty confident that they're going to eject President Trump from office. So that's the lawfare. That's still the ongoing coup to overthrow Trump. You know, it's kind of funny how they latch on all this stuff. The Clinton stuff, remember? Remember how they're trying to get Trump's tax returns? You know, there's not a law that he had to release his tax returns. That's just courtesy. You know what I mean? You know, you got all these tax lawyers out there now, right? Like, you know, the Pelosi's and all the, oh, yeah, right. Mrs. Wrap Up Smear Nancy Pelosi, right? Hiccuping. She's a tax professional. She's a tax lawyer. Oh, there's a smoking gun in there. We're going to get his tax records, and that's going to be it. We're going to take him down. And the media was all going for it, right? We want Barack Obama and Joe Biden's financial records, and their tax records. All of it. Because they helped put together a broader criminal conspiracy to overthrow our president, our government. Whether people like that or not, it deserves a very thorough criminal investigation. They even falsely arrested Trump multiple times. They forced him to go in and basically get his fingerprint done, get mugshots and all that stuff. The reason why they falsely accused Trump of all that stuff is to take over the investigations and to destroy any criminal evidence on themselves. They've already done it. For the most part. That's why they wanted to know what Trump had in Mar-a-Lago. They say they were looking for, they called it national defense information, right? So they had to basically beef it up, give Biden the presidential finding to basically authorize the use of lethal force to murder somebody if they block them getting that information, because that's how critical it was to them to keep their names clear from any seditious or treasonous information getting out. So that's exactly what they did. Remember, Donald Trump was cooperating with the FBI. That was a secure facility under protection of the U.S. Secret Service. The FBI actually looked at the place where they held those documents, whatever documents Trump had, right, and recommended a different lock. Then they went in and raided Mar-a-Lago. They confiscated video footage, right? Could you imagine what they'd done to Trump if he didn't get reelected? His family? Could you imagine if the Democrats had total control of the government, the executive, legislative, and in many aspects, they got a firm control over, corrupt control over the judicial system in Washington, D.C. You can't find a fair trial there anywhere. Just ask a lot of the J6ers that just protested peacefully that day. They arrested, what, over 1,200 of them? Majority of them only went in there peacefully. Some of them were motioned to come in the Capitol. Oh, they were just motioning in police officers to come in the Capitol. Don't look there. I've already saw the video. That's BS. I saw a man in law enforcement uniform, a silver badge, dark blue or black law enforcement uniform on, moving temporary barriers aside and motioning people to come into the Capitol. What basically totally discredits that statement is that when they went to the east side of the Capitol, especially, those doors were open for them from inside the Capitol building. See, they needed that breach. They needed to evacuate the joint sessions or the separate Senate and House chambers where they're deliberating on the evidence that was being read as far as election fraud in the hindsight perfect vision ease, right? That's what they were reading. Now, any of this information is false, or you might deem it disinformation. Put the information you have in the comment section. I will review it after the live stream's over, and I'll make the necessary corrections if I have to. If I have to, I want to, because that only destroys this credibility of this channel. If I put out, and I make mistakes, I'm a human being. Sometimes I made doozies. At the very next night, I had to run another live stream to correct something I said inadvertently or whatever, without thinking about it. That was wrong. I said the wrong name or whatever. Oh my God. So I go back and I make the necessary changes. Anyways, we only have, it's like 7 people here now. Please go check out the True Social. Let me see here. Let me see if I can get that True Social link to my profile in the chat again, because it's very important. My source references are there. And sometimes there's so much material I go through. I've been doing this again for the most part since 2008, when African American church leaders approached me to warn me about a guy named Senator Barack Obama that I didn't even know who he was. To this day, I still question why they approached me with the information. They led me down the path to go to look at Barack Obama's what do you call it? Activity as a chairman of the Health and Human Services Committee in Illinois, how he blocked partial birth, abortion bills from being passed. And then they basically had me to watch a movie called The Silent Scream. And that really had an enormous impact on me as a human being with a living soul. I don't know anybody out there that would have a living soul and watch the video called The Silent Scream and not basically be upset for what you just saw.
And I always thought to myself, if someone is capable of doing that, what else are they capable of doing? So the whole my mindset, my whole mindset on a lot of these activities, my whole mindset was changed, right? I used to take a lot of things for granted. I didn't really sit there and think about our national motto, in God we trust. You know, why should we trust these other people? Then that goes back to the fact that I actually ask people if I make a mistake or if I forget a name, uh, remain active in the chat, whatever. If I forget a name or something, I made a misstatement, basically put it in the chat where I can see it so I can correct it right during the live stream. If not, put it in the comment section because the comment section will save after the live stream's over. So anyways, yeah, the presidential funding is a big deal. Now, it wasn't Merrick Garland on his own that basically approved the use of lethal force and basically set up an assault operation on Mar-a-Lago, right? To basically try to do a fishing expedition to see if President Trump had any more damning information on themselves, right? So they wanted that information. They wanted that information so they could do what? Wipe it with a cloth, right? Smash it with a hammer. The same MO, the same operandi. What do you call it? Modus operandi. The same operations. Just the names and places are different, right? So let me see if I can bring up this without losing my channel. I don't think I losing the live stream. So there's a lot of information that I put out there. Hold on a second. Yeah, I shared the YouTube live stream from the Patrick Bet David Valuetainment, I guess it's called. Let me click on this and see. Now I can't basically click on the link. It's not giving me a hyperlink. Thought that used to do that, but maybe. Should be able to post links in there, but all that information again is over on Truth Social. So if you look at that https colon / truthsocial.com / at area 111 / okay, you could type that into your browser, okay, and go right to my social media page, Truth Social, okay, the place where they support the truth. Remember in that movie, the conspiracy theory, Julia Roberts acting in that acting persona, whatever, she said the truth can set you free, right? Well, the truth can not only set innocent people free, and they might be able to make a deal, the truth can also lead to military tribunals. And let's see, You know, when you know what the punishments are for treason. Oh, anyways. So there's some thoughts about the way that they can charge these individuals. I mean, this is flat out, I mean, treason, and it's still ongoing. You know what I mean? Still ongoing. So, okay, so there was a covert operation, in my opinion. I'm going to talk about some of the source references I've already placed over on True Social at my Area 111 channel. Um, remember, now we talked about Obama December 2nd of 2014 at Bethesda, Maryland. You know, John Hopkins talking about he wants to put together a global pandemic infrastructure. Now, remember Event 201? Event 201 was hosted by the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. It was um, basically hosted by Bloomberg Health and Security. I can't remember all the names, right? But it was held there. That's in New York, as far as my understanding is, or no, Bethesda, Maryland, right? So, anyways, Event 201, the major players of Event 201. Now, I think this all applies. Remember, they built those labs. They were funded through like USAID. Those were military type labs that they built in Ukraine, right? So that came out under questioning from Senator Marco Rubio with Victoria Nuland. They basically said that they try to throw us off into a different direction. Well, we want to make sure that Russia does not get those pathogens that are in those biolabs, right? Well, you had Barack Obama out there soliciting for global pandemic infrastructure to set that up. What else did you have? What else do we have? How do I believe they help fund those operations? How did they fund the gain of function in Wuhan? Where did they get all this money? Remember, Event 201 was a global pandemic exercise based on the new coronavirus. Now, when you amp up a virus in a bioweapon lab, right? What are you creating? You basically you improve the severity of those pathogens or the virus. I'm not a doctor, right? I'm just telling basically what I feel, what I understand. So how could they fund these type of operations? Well, you see that avatar picture with George Fugal and Avril Haines on YouTube. I don't know if you see that over on Rumble or not. Hold on a second. Let me go over there. Yeah, the same photograph over on Rumble. It's amazing, 0 viewers. So again, that's George Fugal sitting to the right of Avril Haines during Event 201 global pandemic exercise based on the new coronavirus held on October 18th of 2019, before the first known case struck America, right? So the other picture that I did not put up there yet. Now this is, remember, you can't minimize the importance of this information. We're talking about putting together global pandemic infrastructure. We're talking about funding it. George Fugao actually, during Event 201, when he spoke, he talked about centralizing the money to a central location. You know, centralize the money. You got lots of money here. He's talking about private people. There's like Ted Turner was basically being represented through the what do you call it, UN Foundation. You had Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation being represented. You know, you had other like hotel owners. You had media Mongols represented there. What do you call them? Moguls represented there. Had all these people there, right? Not a single one of them belonged to the Trump administration. That's what I have to stress the importance of. That's a very important key piece of information in this. They're preparing for something. Barack Obama began preparing for something too. In 2014, he was soliciting for the money. And I'm going to tell you all my theory where I believe they got the money covertly to fund all this activity. Well, George Fugao, you see him in that picture with the glasses. He's the Communist Chinese Party Center of Disease Control Director at the time. He's sitting right next to, by the way, he helped oversee the bioweapons labs in China. That's a very important key point here. And then next to, on Avril Haines' right, that's George Fugao. It's important also. She's sitting right next to the guy that helped oversee the bioweapons labs in China. At the time of Event 201, global pandemic exercise based on the new coronavirus that was created in a what? A lab in China. Avril Haines is sitting right next to him. Who was she at the time? She was Joe Biden's senior campaign advisor for their third campaign, the Biden third term campaign. Prior to that, she was Barack Obama's, Joe Biden's, and John Brennan's deputy director of the CIA. She was also Barack Obama, Joe Biden, and Susan Rice's deputy national security advisor. She's directly involved in all this stuff. So where do I think they got some of the money? So you got China implicated in this, right? And you have the intel community involved in this. Where I think they got the money was in Barack Obama's joint partnership with President Xi and China, their joint partnership to join the Paris Climate Accord. Okay? Now, this is a big deal. This is really, really huge, a big deal. If this is indeed true, they were diverting that money. Basically, the joint partnership with China was basically going to soak the American taxpayer of $100 billion for 10 years to get us into the Paris Climate Accord joint partnership. Remember, it was a joint partnership between Barack Obama and President Xi of China. Got some more information on that. So, joint partnership. $100 billion a year for 10 years, amounting to
$1 trillion. That's a lot of infrastructure money, ain't it? Now, they probably used the money for something else as well, but they diverted it into these activities. Now, what about the funding of Iran's so-called peaceful nuclear program? Where did the uranium come from? Remember the Russian reset? On July 7th of 2009, Barack Obama, along with his intel chief, they basically went to Novo-Ogaryovo in Russia and met with Vladimir Putin. Sergei Lavrov was there to be the interpreter. Why did Barack Obama travel to Novo-Ogaryovo in Russia to meet with Vladimir Putin when Dmitry Medvedev was the president of Russia at the time in Moscow? Because they were, remember, that was the Russian reset. First, they had to implement the Russian reset, right? They implemented a Russian reset. Barack Obama basically gets his intel chief, James Jones, General James Jones, and they fly to Novo-Ogaryovo or Russia, near Novo-Ogaryovo. They disembark, and they go to that compound and meet with Vladimir Putin. Why wasn't they meeting with Dmitry Medvedev in Moscow? Because he was the president, that's proper protocol. Because they were putting together an intel operation. In my opinion, you can get basically a lot of information from Peter Schweitzer's book called Clinton Cash, right? So they went to Novo-Ogaryovo to conduct that intel briefing to put together the operation. And in my opinion, probably other things as well as we don't know about, because this was highly classified, compartmental-like classified going on, activities going on. So they put together the U-1 deal, in my opinion. It was an intel operation to basically deliver uranium from the United States to Russia, and Russia would be the middleman for the delivery of that yellow cake or uranium to Iran. That's my opinion. And there's a lot of other information that kind of like is, you might say it's circumstantial, but remember the phony Russian reset? And remember where a lot of those tracks, the money came from Russia, right, to pay for it? Came from? Well, remember, Barack Obama unlocked about $150 billion for Iran's use during those 2 terms, right? Barack Obama was shipping pallets of cash over there as well. Now, was Barack Obama, the Biden administration, being extorted? Could it have something to do with bin Laden brought to Iran for his own protection after 9/11? I don't know. Okay, now there's I think it's connected though. So there's evidence on it. I actually got a little video clip on True Social. That's part of my source reference. So that's the reason why they had to bring up this Russia stuff.
They had to put together the fraudulent finding to accuse Trump of Russia. Remember, Obama and Michelle Obama, when they traveled to Russia, they were sleeping in the bed with the enemy. Kind of like, that's a movie too, right? In a way, they were sleeping in the bed with the enemy. So you got that dossier and all that stuff, right? You put together to falsely implicate President Trump. They create the fraudulent presidential finding, and they basically put together the broader criminal conspiracy to overthrow our duly elected government before they ever got in office. They already had to put together the broader criminal conspiracy. That is treason. So they could take over the investigations themselves to destroy all the damning information on themselves. That's the reason why they're coming up with the Stephanie Clifford stuff, the operative Desert Stormy Daniels and all that garbage, and E. Jean Carroll. What else are they trying to obfuscate? Remember the $17 million congressional slush fund that they had to help protect victims of sexual harassment, whatever? They were calling for that to be released in December, right? They shut down that investigation, right? And then they started coming up trying to accuse Trump of the being a client for Jeffrey Epstein, right? So that's the reason why they did it. They're falsely accusing Trump. That's their MO. Modus of operandi. They set the precedent for doing that stuff. It's all them. I mean, some people in our community, they make mistakes too, right? We got bad apples everywhere. But that's all part of the psychological warfare operation that they started in 2016. And we got all the evidence now. Some of these things might not click. I mean, they might not be connected, but either way, it's something to be greatly concerned about. So I want to bring up, Norm Eisen isn't the only one out there. He was Obama's White House counsel, a long history. He just went out there and put out this information that basically he believes they're going to eject President Trump from office. That comes at around the time where, Comey's putting out these seashell formations, what they say, what they basically message, their messaging, that's messaging. Ejecting, if you're looking at it as far as a fighter pilot is concerned, when do you eject? When do you eject out of a plane? The fighter plane or a bomber, or let's say Air Force One. When do you eject out of those planes? Once they're shot, right? Once they're shot, you eject them out of office. They're ejected out of office. That's just another term. Remember, Biden said to put Trump in a bullseye, right? They said all this information. And officially, they started this stuff off with a presidential finding that Obama agreed to, along with his intel people and his loyal inner circle. Now, why would if you were a national security advisor, why would you write 2 emails to yourself and make sure that they're read from the oncoming administration, right? For the oncoming national security advisor,
Why would you write yourself two emails? We did everything by the book. And you know they destroyed the rest. They falsely accused Trump or other people, innocent people, exactly what they did, take over the investigation. But they accused General Flynn of that, right? How many people believe that Russian ambassador, what's his name? The Russian ambassador Kislyak to the United States. How many people believe that Kislyak can actually go to the bathroom without Vladimir Putin's permission? You think that Kislyak on his own just called up General Flynn? Well, General Flynn was on vacation, right? Just to go, let's talk about who asked Kislyak to call up General Flynn? And who would be monitoring that communication? It's outsourced, right? Oh, CIA can't listen in on the communication from General Flynn and Russian ambassador to the United States, Kislyak's phone call? Who set up the phone call? Of course, it's the Obama administration. You know, they bamboozled. I even got the video on True Social where Obama came out there and said, "Oh, you know, told Trump to stop whining about, you know, rigging, you know, whatever." I think that was back in, I can't remember where it was. That they can't rig them, right, because they're decentralized. The guy's a pathological liar. Then they started the Russia stuff, right? They needed to take over the investigation to destroy all the evidence on themselves. And when they got back in charge, they went looking for that information and they couldn't find it. So, through that presidential finding that continued on with Biden's third term, they authorized the use of lethal force in an assault operation on Mar-a-Lago to recover that information. And I'm going to provide you some direct information tonight, like I have before in the past, that basically implicates Barack Obama directly, because that's his MO. He did it to Bush. He did it to Bush. Now, I don't know what the information he had over Bush's head, but Bush has been quiet like a George W. Remember George W. Crawford Ranch, south there of Dallas, Texas? Remember Crawford Ranch where they had the TFR? Remember George Magazine, JFK Jr.'s George Magazine, where he got Cindy Crawford to cross-dress as George W. in case you don't know which George W. JFK Jr. was talking about? Now, you can get this from a Mother Jones article and other places as well. Barack Obama illegally confiscated the records of George W. Bush. Okay? He confiscated them. I'm going to prove it. This information that came out right after Obama got in office. I think it was the very first day this article came. The very first day Barack Obama's in office, or the very next day, January 21st of 2009, Barack Obama threatens George W. Bush, the former president.
Who helped him do that? That's his intel community, because Obama is an intel construct. Okay, this is a Mother Jones article. This is a source reference. You can read it for yourself. This was published on January 21st of 2009. The next day that Obama got in the day prior to Obama basically giving his oath, and he was the new president. The title of this article from Mother Jones, Obama to Bush, I can release your records, don't like it, sue. That's the power you have when you're an intel construct. On his first day in office, President Obama put former President Bush on notice. His administration just released an executive order that will make it difficult for Bush to shield his records. Look, now listen. He'll make it difficult for Bush, that's Barack Obama, to shield his White House records and those of former Vice President Dick Cheney from public scrutiny by invoking the doctrine of executive privilege. See, that's the reason why they arrested all those people like Bannon, Navarro, all those people, because he blocked them in his third term, or, after his first term or second term, he blocked them. Bush handled down his own executive order amending the Presidential Records Act. Wait a minute, hold on a second. Let's just read the title, because this is what they did. That's what Obama and his intel community did. They want to make sure that Bush didn't have any damning information on themselves, on them, right? So they confiscated Bush's records. Obama to Bush, I can release your records. Don't like it? Sue. Now, you're going to go up against, you're going to sue the United States? Good luck with that. There's almost endless streams of money coming in, that you have to fight against, right? So please go read this article. That's the precedent that Obama used, confiscating other people's records. Spy operations that even go back to 2008 when John Brennan's company called the Analysis Corporation basically hacked into U.S. State Department records, was instrumental in the security breach, and either purging records of Barack Obama or his mother, purging official records. He set the path for Barack Obama to be president. That's John Brennan, right? John Brennan. So we have people that actually worked for John Brennan that became whistleblowers. So anyways, I pretty much covered all the territorial, wanted to this morning. Thank y'all for sticking around. Don't mind, share this information and subscribe to this channel, Area Space 111 here on YouTube, and follow me over on True Social, Area 111. Remember, Area 111 without the space over on Rumble. So remember, in God we trust. Remember, we actually have the majority. Okay, one last thing I wanted to basically talk about real quick. Yeah, we have to go back and look at Acorn as far as creating thousands of fraudulent registration records. You have to go to look at Organizing for Action, which is about that was put together by Barack Obama and his wingman Eric Holder, that put together like a 30,000 foot soldier army that they could put on the streets. And then you have to look how it went to National Democratic Redistricting Committee. It's an organization put together by Barack Obama. You got the boots on the ground organization. They already had that, right? You had first, it got exposed. Acorn got exposed. So they had to shift their operations, right? Change the names, right? Change the faces, whatever. So you got Organizing for Action. Then you got National Democratic Redistricting Committee. It's an organization, but if you look it up that way, it's going to be hard for you to find that information. But anyways, the National Democratic Redistricting Committee, what that did was help them facilitate and direct the invasion into our country. And while these people were at holding facilities, waiting for their ground transportation or whatever to take them in to the district that they needed these individuals to go to, right? So they can take over overthrow our total government and implement a communist, Marxist, socialist government. That's exactly what their goal was. That's the reason why they brought in over 20 million people. Those people were complicit in mass murder. Let's make this, those 5 years isn't up yet. Anyone that facilitated and directed that invasion into our country, they are complicit with mass murder. They are traitors. Okay? And they also brought in these people, and the holding facilities were what? Also included military bases. So you have a military component of that as well. You got these DEI commanders, whatever. They said, "Oh, it's racist. They're securing the border because they don't want men, women, and children of color coming into our country." You got those, right? There's a military component in all of this. That's why it has to go to military tribunals. We're talking about treason at the highest levels of our government. A broader criminal conspiracy to overthrow our government before it ever got in office. Okay, so with that said, the information's gonna be like scorched earth that's gonna be coming out, and people feel a little bit more after Tulsi Gabbard's information she just put out. A lot of people are going to be emboldened to come off the sidelines, and they're going to have to come off the sidelines, or they're going to be implicated too in treason. You think I'm delusional? What the information I passed alone is it's the tippity tip of the iceberg. Okay, so with that said, good morning, good day, good evening, wherever you're from. This concludes the live stream, and God bless. Thank you.